You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
Precisa ferir a pressão, medir a glicemia ou tomar uma vacina? Na Drogasil tem exames, testes e calendário vacinal completo. E o que é melhor, tem sempre uma Drogasil aí perto de você. É fácil, prático e rápido. Dá para ir entre uma música e outra. Procure nossos farmacêuticos. Quanto mais você conhece o que a gente faz na Drogasil, mais você se cuida.
Welcome to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. So we might as well start with the, I don't know why. I do know why. It's the off season. We have nothing else to talk about. But I feel like this is the third or fourth time Devante Adams has done a press conference and has given all the details of exactly what happened. And we all go, whoa, dang, that's crazy. Now we got the truth. Like, bro, we've had the truth for like 3 years. I don't know what we're talking about here. But we'll go through and listen to what Davante had to say. So for the fourth or fifth or 10th time, why don't we go through and listen to Davante give some information about what all went down when he left.
You know, I played 11 seasons before I abruptly retired, and I played with 18 different quarterbacks. That's why I say you stupid, man. Ain't no way in the world I'm leaving Aaron Rodgers' side.
It sound real good, but it's a whole lot that go into it, man. And when
No, I get it.
We got this Netflix thing coming out, but when the real 1-7 documentary come out, it's gonna be a lot that make you feel a little bit different. I don't never make a decision just out of passion or whatever. It's always calculated. Everything that I do is calculated. And, you know, I mean, just the surface level, we seen how much Aaron was going back and forth year by of we didn't know what his, you know, how long he was going to be in Green Bay. So I can't sit there and honestly, since we talking about it, going into that last year that I played in Green Bay, I told them boys, I said, hey, you see what I'm doing? Them boys, meaning the front office.
Yeah.
It's time for a new deal. So I said, are we going to let me go into this last year with no security? Basically playing, you know, for $12 million, which was significantly less than what a franchise tag would even be. So I'm playing for worse than what the tag is. No security. You got to take out a Lloyd's of London insurance policy to make sure that I'm properly compensated, which still wouldn't have taken care of me the way I needed to. But just in case, you know, I got hit by a turnip truck when I walked out.
So I don't forget all the different points here. A couple different things. So first of all, he gets called an idiot, which is funny. Second of all, he says everything he does is calculated. And I respect that, and I don't mean to hammer on too much, but I think he needed to run his calculations again because he's not in a great situation. Beyond that, though, here's the problem. Complaining that you're only getting $12 million per year, the bottom line is the end of the contract might be a little bit lower than you'd like it to be. That just means you got all your money up front. That's what I don't like about some of this stuff. The Packers structure it so they give you all the cash up front, so that on the back end you don't get as much cash. But you can't take 70% of the money day one, and then when you get to the back end when there's less cash, be like, "Oh, you're not paying me, bro. I pay. You're come on." That's not how this works. That's like if I say, look, I'm going to give you $100, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 70 today. Then I'm going to give you 20, and then I'm going to give you 10. You know? So over 3 days, I gave you $100. But on day 3, you're like, you're only giving me $10? This is ridiculous. I can't believe you're only giving me 10. How am I supposed to live with $10? No, I didn't give you $10. I give you $100 over 3 days. It just so happens that you've already received $90 in the first 2 days. So I sympathize with some of what he's saying, but to sit here and cry about, the fact that it's only $12 million and that he had to take out an insurance policy that he can just in case something happens, so that he could just barely get by, bro. You're not going to get sympathy from people making less than $100,000 a year. When you're talking about $12 million just isn't going to be enough for you, and you have to take out insurance policies just in case something happens, so that I can actually make the amount of money that I need. Like, come on.
Outside, anything could have happened. I needed to make sure that I built some sort of whatever. So long story short, I talked to them. I said, y'all see it's all pro after all pro. So what do you need to see in order for you to feel like you can pay me right now?
But it was stupid on their part not to take care of you.
Look, I said, pay me right now, and then we don't even need to worry about, I'm not going to consider even that Aaron may be out of here. Let's do it now. Yeah. And if it's up to J Love, if Aaron is out of here, then we're gonna rock on. We're going to keep getting it in, right? So I told them that, and they said, okay, well, we'll give you 17 a year. I said, click, nothing to talk about. I don't know if you know what the market looks like or if y'all been asleep for the past 5 years, but there's nothing to talk about.
Okay. So that's basically it, right? We knew that. That was the whole story. There's multiple layers to this, but Davante, first of all, wanted to be a Raider, be closer to his family, grew up a Raiders fan. Number 2 is the volatility with Rodgers. He knew that Rodgers wouldn't be there very much longer, so he had an opportunity to jump ship. However, he did give the Packers an opportunity and said, listen, you can lock this down now, today, if you pay me. And the Packers are like, nah, we're not going to do that unless you're willing to take like this lesser amount. Kind of like what I've said with Kenny, right? I've said it makes sense to not pay him unless it's a low enough number, a number that's probably too little, right? But Davante rocks right through and he tears it up, and the Packers are like, all right, man, you earned it. I'll give you the contract. And he says no. And they're like, well, we'll match whatever. We'll pay even more than that. And he says, no, I'm not doing it. Screw you. Okay. So the bottom line is, for whatever reason, the Packers decided that they wanted to wait, or they didn't want to push it or whatever. I'm sure there's going to be this eternal struggle of who messed up worse, Davante or the Packers. It's a very simple answer to that. Who needs who? Who needs who? Listen, as a Packer fan, it would be awesome if Davante was here. It really would. We would be so scary if Davante was here. But we're good at wide receiver right now. And Davante is not good. Dude is not happy. He hates being a Raider. He hates it over there. I haven't started watching the receiver thing yet, but there's a couple things coming out, and it all seems to be about Davante. Here's one of the clips from Devante Adams on the sideline.
I gotta get the fuck out of here before I lose my fucking life. I ain't never been hit this many fucking times in my career. Every game I get fucked up.
So he's talking about, first of all, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here because the quarterback sucks and he's throwing up these ducks and I'm just getting killed out there on the field. So apparently Davante didn't take that into his calculations. Here's another scene from the Netflix series Receiver.
I'm the ultimate competitor. My benchmark is not wins and losses, it's greatness. I didn't lead differently because we won more in Green Bay. Like, that had nothing to do with it. So when I go out there, that's why games like this last one, like y'all know, I'm not happy after that. That ain't the way it's supposed to look. But it ain't even about me. It's about the way that it's supposed to look. And if it don't look right and I'm not getting opportunities, well, then now we got a problem. Right. That's what I'm here for. I mean, they gave me a lot of money to come here and score touchdowns and get first downs. And if I'm not given the proper opportunities and it looks like dog on offense, I mean, it's time to do something about it.
So again, my perspective on this is Davante should have stayed. He should have stayed. He that was his decision. He decided to stick it to the Packers while also just jumping ship because he didn't believe in Jordan. Let's just be completely honest about it. If he thought Jordan was going to be as good as he was, he probably wouldn't have left. So that calculation also didn't check out. He thought that his buddy over there, Carr, was going to be great. It turns out not only was he not great, but he wasn't going to be able to keep his job, which is another calculation that wasn't made quite right. And so he's miserable over there. And, we heard this from, I think yesterday, Josh Jacobs. He was talking about, me and Davante and Max Crosby, we're putting in the work all the time. These guys are putting in the work, and they're not getting the results that they want. And a lot of the other guys are not putting in the requisite amount of work, not just the players, but the coaches, right? It's not working. I'm doing everything I need to do, and we're not getting the results. And you heard it from Josh Jacobs when they said, hey, we want you to take a pay cut. And he said, I'm not taking a pay cut to come back here and lose, So he went to the Packers because he wanted the money and he wanted to win. So this has sparked a bunch of speculation about Davante because, number one, he obviously wants out. He does not want to be there anymore. Maybe it's just frustration because it's in season and it's like, I still want to stay close to my family or whatever, but he is not happy. And so there's obviously speculation among Packer fans, very slight, but some, would he come back? The bottom line is, though, the Packers aren't going to pay him. At least I wouldn't think so. There's a possibility maybe on like a short-term thing to come back for a year or two, but I don't really see any way. I mean, he'd have to be off the books by the time our other receivers are starting to get paid, and I don't think the Packers would want to stunt his growth anyways. I mean, the bottom line is he's still a very good receiver. He's going to want to get top money. I don't know if he's necessarily worth like the top of the top anymore. If I'm being completely honest, he's kind of in the maybe top 10 category these days. So he's better off waiting for a team that's maybe not as smart that's going to pay him like a top receiver, even though they may not get exactly top receiver output. But this has actually sparked quite a bit of speculation about a reunification of Devante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Now, when I initially saw this, I thought, this is stupid. In fact, it was a well-known scam account that just blasted it out there that this is a thing. And so immediately it sets off the alarm bells that, just ignore all news about Davante going to the Jets. But there's a tiny bit of where there's smoke, there's fire going on. And keep in mind, the smoke began back when this receiver series came out, and you can see how much Davante hates being a Raider and wants to get the heck out of there. And clearly regrets his decision, despite doing an interview before saying, I don't regret my decisions. No, you do. You wish, if you could go back, you would have made a different decision. That's kind of the idea with how regret works. But you start to hear a little bit more and more. First off, it's just kind of speculation.
Absolutely. He should want to reunite with
Aaron
Rodgers. And the reason why is because Super Bowl rings don't matter for skills. Devante Adams is chasing greatness. Devante Adams is trying to be at that table. When they say who is the best receivers to ever play this game, Devante Adams' name wants to be in there. He wants his name to be in there. With Aaron Rodgers, all that is possible. With the quarterbacks you're playing right now, you don't really have the years to waste when you talk about that. So with Devante Adams, it's about stats and getting his name into the conversation to being one of the greatest receivers ever and into the conversations to when I say I'm done playing this game, I don't have to wait more than 5 years. Right out of 5 years, Devante Adams is going into the Hall of Fame. That is what DA is chasing. If a Super Bowl ring comes with that, kudos to him. But he has done too much in this game to kind of let average quarterback play ruin that. And if you're able to get back with Aaron Rodgers, who you have really good chemistry with, where you have destroyed the NFL playing with Aaron Rodgers, stats-wise and all that, who wouldn't want to do that because you are chasing greatness? So I would not be surprised if at one point we seen this duo together again.
So, again, it's all speculation. However, it makes sense, right? So we know Davante doesn't like being a Raider. Right? Maybe he doesn't want to leave his family. Maybe he's content, whatever. But it makes sense. This is a guy who talks constantly about greatness. And these last few years, he's partially unhappy, not just because he's getting hit or because they're not winning, but because his name is no longer up there with the greats. Nobody cares about Davante anymore because nobody cares about the Raiders. He doesn't want to go out like that. So then you think about it on the other side. When you say, would the Jets be willing? And it's like, freaking of course. First of all, they have bent over backwards to do absolutely everything Aaron Rodgers has ever wanted. I would be surprised if they haven't already reached out to Davante. In other words, like the year he went over. In fact, I think there might have been some talk about that. It's just a question of would Davante do it? Would they be willing to give up the money and the draft capital? Of course they would. Bro, you've already blown your future out when you went out and got Aaron Rodgers. You're already all in, so be all the way all in. Then there was this video. Some Raiders channel or whatever caught up with Rodgers on the golf course. Rodgers in his very classic, cordial, polite attitude.
What's up? You think Luke Getsy's going to utilize Devante Adams good in the new Raiders offense?
I love Luke Getsy. He's a fantastic coach.
Awesome.
And I love Davante. I can't wait to play with him again.
Great. Love to hear it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to play with him again. Doesn't have to mean anything, I suppose. But again, Davante doesn't want to be there. You know Rodgers wants Davante to be a Jet. You know the Jets would be willing to call Davante. You got Rodgers saying, I can't wait to play with him again. And then finally is this video from Kay Adams talking to Breece Hall.
You say you're going to be Aaron Rodgers' best friend. I love that you're saying you're going to touch the ball other than anybody, other than him more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Then enter Devante Adams potentially. You seeing this stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to be competing with touches with Devante?
Nah, I'm getting the ball the second most of guards. Devante, he knows he's gonna get his, but I'm definitely gonna be.
I'm sorry, is Devante a Jet?
Hey, you never know. You never know. We're always talking. We're always scheming.
Listen, yes, there we go. I said that you actually maybe go all in.
Yeah,
and make a big addition. You think we should?
I'm on board.
What would Devante bring to the team?
I mean, with him and then with Garrett and Mike Williams.
I was going to say, good thing you mentioned Garrett. I don't know if he likes this stuff.
Just pick your poison. Do you want me to beat you or do you want those three to beat you with Aaron? It's just pick your poison.
All right. Now, obviously, he's just playing along with the hypothetical when he says, yeah, Davante will get his, but again, it's not even so much the smoke in terms of, because, these conversations are coming up because the conversation's coming. And so there's going to be more and more and more and more and more. And you can't use that as further evidence because there's just like the main evidence is the only evidence. And really, there's no evidence aside from Rodgers saying, I can't wait to play him again. And the fact that we know Davante is just freaking miserable with the Raiders. But again, it does make sense. The Jets could not care any less. And if you're going to go out and get Nathaniel Hackett, who's not good at his job, and then when Nathaniel Hackett basically doesn't do his job, rather than firing him because of Aaron Rodgers, you hire somebody else to be like the interim offensive coordinator to actually usurp that role so that you can avoid. You're willing to go through all that for Rodgers, but you're not going to go all in to get Davante. So really, it's like, what is the biggest obstacle? Is it getting the Jets to make the call, or is it getting Davante to say yes? Because neither of those really seem to be, at least to get me over the hump logically, it doesn't take very much. Again, I would be shocked if the Jets haven't been calling nonstop. I think the biggest hurdle for me is Davante saying yes. You could say the biggest hurdle is the Raiders, but if it's me, I think the Raiders would be stupid to not trade him away for whatever. I mean, you offload the contract, give it to the Raiders, or the Jets, you eat whatever you got to eat, which I don't think it would cost them anything. The dead cap it's almost identical. I think they'd save like $600,000 if they moved on from Davante. Actually, that's not true. If it's a trade, they would save $17 million. They'd only have to eat $7.8 million. So you get $17.5 million back this year on top of like $8 million next year, or 14 or whatever it is, 15, and you're going to probably get a haul. You're not winning anything. He's 32 years old. Are you going to win in the next year or two? If not, you should not have Davante on your team. You take as many picks as you can possibly get, and you try to flip him to rebuild your team. So the Raiders should try to trade Davante. The Jets, borderline, should try to go get Davante because, again, what does it matter? I would be against this plan, but you're already all the way in on this plan, so you might as well just finish the plan. Purge whatever money and picks you have left because you pretty much have to win a Super Bowl this year or maybe next year if Rodgers is willing to put up with this for one more year. So do it. So again, I think the biggest thing might be Davante. Like, do you want to go to New York? Do you want to finish out there? And on top of that, Are you going to sign like a 2-3 year contract when you don't know if you're back into that? I don't know how much longer Rodgers is going to do this game. I mean, if I was going to move on, I'd almost rather, talk to the Chiefs or the Chargers with Herbert, or, the Packers or the Texans, or somebody that's got a younger, more long-term young quarterback. But anyways, it's out there. It's being talked about. And I'll be honest, man, there's a part of me that really wants it to happen. As much as I do not want the Jets to be wildly successful, watching Rodgers and Davante back together, something about that just kind of gets me a little fired up. It's such a special connection, man. The NFL needs it back, Anyways, why don't we take a break? When we come back, we got something else for you, and then we'll end with some calls. We'll be right back. So I decided for fun, I didn't even know if I'd be able to, but to go back and look at On This Day in History. So I went back and looked at the podcast, and one of the saddest realities is that a lot of the episodes, little over a year, about a year and a half, 2 years, whatever, of podcast episodes are gone. But we still have 5 years worth of podcasts from July 12th. So we have, in 2019, biggest challenges for the Packers in 2019. The NFL needs innovation in 2020. It's an evergreen topic. Packers get some love in the media today. That was 2021, which is pretty funny because it wasn't until after 2020 when the Packers were dominant that it's like, oh, now they like the Packers again. In 2022 was who are the most tradable Packers? And then last year, way too early, 2024 NFL draft preview. And I thought, we haven't done that yet. And the thing that we haven't done is look at the 2025 NFL draft preview. And remember, I said that we need to get started early because we need to be the most educated people on planet Earth when it comes to the 2025 NFL draft because it's going to be in Green Bay. We got to know everything and everybody. So let's just do a real quick once over, and we'll try to get this in the rotation a little bit more often, at least until we get rocking and rolling with the training camp stuff. But let's go position by position. And this is the consensus big board over at NFL Mock Draft Database. So they take all the different mock drafts and big boards, and they aggregate them to kind of give a general consensus view of where everybody is. So obviously this is not how any one person thinks it's going to go, but it's kind of where we're at right now. So as far as quarterbacks, there are two top quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is going to be a major storyline with the whole Colorado thing. It's an interesting storyline. We'll see if he can live up to that. I actually was a huge fan of his when I watched him last year, when I thought he might come out last year. I'm actually surprised he's as high as he was because I remember when I went back and watched him, I was like, man, this Shedeur Sanders guy is really, really talented. And I want to say he was either a late first or an early second kind of a guy, and I was like, that's surprising to me. But here he is as the top quarterback prospect currently at number 5. Then at 6, you've got Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. Then you go to the back of the first as of right now, Jalen Milroe out of Alabama, Quinn Ewers out of Texas at 3rd. And then a big pile of other potential guys, Connor Wigman, Texas A&M, Jackson Dart, Mississippi, Cam Ward, Miami, Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU, and Drew Allar out of Penn State. They're kind of in that second round category. Hopefully the Packers have no interest in that. Likewise, probably not going to be super interested in running backs. Doesn't look to be a super high, not like a top 10 running back category. However, late first, early second, you got Quinshawn Judkis out of Ohio State, Ollie Gordon II out of Oklahoma State, Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. I swear, if there could just be one name that's easy to... Seriously, Quinshawn Judkins, Ollie Gordon, I guess that's easy enough, Ashton Jeanty, Jeanty, then it's Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Trevor Etienne, Donovan Edwards, Nick Singleton, and Devin Neal in the top 100. Wide receiver, there's going to be another pile again. Usually there's a handful of first round. This time it looks like there's about 4. Luther Burden is currently number 4 overall right now, so real talented wide receiver. You got Teteroa McMillan, good Lord, out of Arizona, sitting at 11. You got Emeka Egbuka, Ohio State. Of course, you got to have your Ohio State guy. He's sitting at 16. Oregon has Evan Stewart at 23. Tight end, again, probably not a massive need for the Packers, but Colston Loveland is really the only, he's really the only prospect anyone gives a crap about. The next is Luke Lachey, and he's currently sitting at 60, so kind of almost third-round pickish. Colston Loveland is at 18, so one tight end in that class. Then we get into offensive line, which is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting for the Pack. Will Campbell is a top 10 offensive tackle out of LSU. Then you have Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas. Emory Jones out of LSU. So obviously the LSU guys, pretty talented. Those are the 3 first-round guys. Second round, you got Tyler Booker, Alabama. Josh Connerly out of Oregon. And kind of Fernando Carmona. He's at 64 out of Arkansas. Interior, kind of normal. You've got one kind of late first-round guy in Jonas Savaiinaea, Savaiinaea. Gosh. And then right now, just one second-round guy in Ernest Green. So really weak interior class, which is unfortunate. Probably the Packers are going to have to look at free agency, although there's going to be third-round, fourth-round guys that they can take swings at. And there's, of course, tackles that they can take swings at, although not a ton of them. Flipping over to the defensive side, where it starts to get a little bit more interesting, as much as it's weird to say, because you would think at some point we got to have an offensive-heavy draft. But, as you sit here and think about it, outside of offensive line, what are we going to do? Defensive line, certainly a possibility, depending on what we have at defensive tackle, especially if Kenny is not a long-term option. There are quite a big pile of defensive tackles. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7. I don't know. I can't count. That are defensive tackles that are presumed first-round picks. Mason Graham out of Michigan is at 9. Deion Walker, Kentucky, at 10. Michael Williams, defensive lineman out of Georgia, at 20. Tyleik Williams, Ohio State, 22. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan at 27. Princely Umanmielen out of Ole Miss, 31. And Walter Nolan, defensive lineman, at 32. So as we all sit here today, if you were asking me what the Packers are going to do, I'm saying defensive tackle, because Gutekunst wants to do it anyways. That's where the defense or the draft seems to be heavy. Especially because you got starting with you got Williams at 20, the other Williams at 22, Grant at 27, Manu at 31, and Nolan at 32. It's just when you start at 20, half the picks left are defensive tackles, and we're probably picking in the 20s or 30s. I'm just saying. At edge, they've got 4 guys right now that they see as first-round picks. Number 1 is James Pierce, edge rusher out of Tennessee. He is currently at number 2 overall. Then you drop out of the top 10. You've got Abdul Carter, Penn State at 12. You got Nick Scorton, edge rusher at 14. Jack Sawyer at Ohio State is at 29. Linebackers, there's just one first-round candidate, Harold Perkins out of LSU. Corners, which also could be something to keep an eye on. It's relatively heavy, but there's 3 of them in the top 10. So number 1 overall right now is Will Johnson out of Michigan. Number 3 is Travis Hunter. I would love to know the last time that 2 of the top 3 picks were corners. Even prospects, even if they don't end up being picked, to have 2 of the top 3 being corners that's a heck of a group. Then you have Benjamin Morris out of Notre Dame, who is currently sitting at 7. Unlikely the Packers get any of those. Then it gets a little bit more scarce, where you have Takario Davis out of Arizona at 17. And then more likely than that, you've got kind of those guys in the second round that the Packers would probably end up reaching on. You have Jabbar Muhammad out of Oregon, who's at 35, and Denzel Burke out of Ohio State at 37. Safety is obviously unlikely, but who knows? Malachi Starks at 19. After that, Kevin Winston at 33 is all there really is. So if we're looking at kind of, let's say, the almost 20s on, you've got the tight end, Colson Loveland, unlikely. Safety, Malachi Starks at 19, unlikely. Michael Williams at 20. Emory Jones, offensive tackle. So defensive tackle, offensive tackle, defensive tackle. Wide receiver, Evan Stewart. Guard, Jonas, whatever. Running back, Quinshawn Judkins. Quarterback, Jalen Monroe. Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman. Ollie Gordon, running back. Jack Sawyer, edge. Quinn Ewers, quarterback. Prince Lee, whatever, defensive lineman. Walter Nolan, defensive lineman. If things go south with our special teams, the kickers, nobody is really, really high. In fact, none of these guys are seen to be even draftable, but Jonah Delmas, kicker out of Boise State, is at 310. Ethan Majulski, Texas A&M. It's another name. Obviously, somebody could skyrocket up, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of draftable guys. Punting, same thing. 353 is the highest they have. Alex Bachetta. After that, it drops to 507. So for the never draft special teams guys, you should be happy with this draft. Even long snapper, the highest is Lance St. Louis, who plays for Texas. The missed opportunity. He's at 418. So it is kind of interesting to look at, and it's probably why once we get training camp going, things will start to come into focus a little bit. We'll kind of get a better idea. Like, I'm curious about our offensive line. What do we have there? How much confidence do we have in that? It's possible wide receiver could become a question. I mean, if Christian Watson ends up having injury issues, we may need to start asking some questions, especially just looking for that speed guy. If there's a pure speed guy in this upcoming draft, it's not the worst thing to consider. Even just as a true number one, we just talked about Davante. I like Dobbs and I like Wick. That doesn't mean everything else is off the table. Tight end, probably less likely that we would ever look in that direction. I shouldn't say ever, but let's say in the first 3 rounds, it seems somewhat unlikely. Running back, I mean, there is a chance, although I doubt by training camp we'll have any of that come into focus, because we're going to assume that we have Josh Jacobs and we have Marshawn Lloyd. However, again, if Josh Jacobs doesn't really come, it's kind of a short-term contract that we have him on in reality. Dylan is probably not going to be around. So, I mean, that's really all it takes, is if the running backs just don't look good and we're thinking we need more and different. Defensively, again, we got a lot of guys. But if maybe it's time to move on from Cam, if Wyatt kind of doesn't take a step, and if the Brooks and Wooden thing kind of just seems like the Brooks and Wooden from last year, then I don't know that we have a real slam dunk at defensive tackle. In fact, even if you have something step up, like if Kenny's not going to be a long-term option and Wyatt looks good, but that's really it, like Slayton and Brooks and Wooden, then yes, defensive tackle is absolutely on the table. Edge is not impossible. We do have Rashawn, but Rashawn is also kind of in that, he kind of fell off after he got his contract. He's got some injury stuff. Preston, I don't really know what's going to happen with Preston, with the switch to a 4-3 and him getting a little bit old. Lucas Van Ness, if he doesn't take a step, I mean, we got 3 potentials. If it looks like maybe Rashawn is solid, Van Ness is not the guy we were hoping he was going to be, or at least hasn't been in the first 2 years, and Preston is a short-term answer, Edge is definitely somewhere that you could look. Linebacker, somewhat more unlikely with, Quay and Edger in there. How much do you want to invest? You want another first or second round pick at linebacker? I would rather not. Corner is largely going to come down to Stoke. Also, another question would be the slot. I mean, if Keyshawn is not the answer in the slot, do we put Bullard there? Do we put anybody there? Evans, Oladapo? We might have 3 really solid corners. We might have 1. I don't know. So, again, just kind of a once through, but once we start to get more information, once we start to feel good or not so good about certain positions, that's when we start to look at, okay, maybe that should be an area of focus moving forward. I think we kind of know the offensive line is going to need a little bit of help. That's one of the less likely to be just perfectly fine situations. We don't know what Jordan Morgan is. Elton, I'm still kind of like, where are we at? Like, are we ever going to see great Elton? Josh Myers, I mean, is it possible that Jordan plays left tackle and or I should put it this way, if you have Rashid play well, Elton play well, Josh Myers is back to what he was, Jordan Morgan is a really solid right guard, and Zach Tom plays great, then yeah, all we're missing is depth because we have zero depth, but we have a great offensive line. But that's also really unlikely. So the only thing right now that I'm looking at confidently that the Packers are going to need to address moving forward is offensive line. Aside from that, we got to wait and see. Every other position, as far as I can tell, there's every reason to be optimistic that we're going to be just fine, which is a great position to be in. All right, why don't we take our final break? We'll come back. We'll get to some calls. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan, this is Dakota, that nerd in Tennessee.
What's up?
How you doing?
Good.
I was just listening to one of the Packernet After Dark. I think this was one of the more recent ones. But anyway, you were talking about Rashawn Gary and how, he had he didn't have the best season this past season.
Sure.
And that you had hoped that, especially for fan base that seems to put a ridiculous amount of onus on pass rushers to get actual sacks and not actually produce in any other way, that he gets more sacks. Well, it got me thinking, it got me a little fearful that, hey, hopefully that injury that Rashawn sustained doesn't impact still even further to his future, and hopefully he's able to pick up something, not quite to 18%, but, a little bit less. Some sort of 13 pretty good. I'd take that one. But then it started getting me thinking. I was like, wait, who are our other pass rushers? And I was like, well, Van Ness, which kind of got me excited. I mean, he didn't do a dang thing last year, but I don't think anybody expected him to. So hopefully we're looking for him to step up and do a little bit more. And then, of course, we got Colby Wooden, who's going to have his, and Carl Brooks, so that they're the same person that just splits into two separate people right before the game, and that's a superpower, I guess. But, they're going to have their 3 or so games of thing. And then, we got Preston, right? Preston's pretty awesome. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, wait, hold on now. We got Halfley now. So, we're going to be more aggressive. And I think he's a DB guy, if I remember correctly, cornerback specifically, but, he does focus on pass rush and penetrating, in the middle and on the ends. And I think he uses linebackers too to penetrate. It's been a minute, and I've been very busy, and I should have looked this up before I called. And, then I thought, well, there's Edgerrin Cooper. He's kind of cool. You're going to have him probably come in every so often, and Quay Walker. And I looked at Edgerrin Cooper. The edge is literally right in his name, so that man's going to tackle a quarterback a couple times. Anyway, I said all that. I really just want to ask, in your opinion, what is a good year for Lucas Van Ness? He was very much above Clay, when we first got him. So what would be, in your opinion, a good season, and what would be a great season for Lucas Van Ness? All right, man. Peace.
Well, that is a fantastic question, because one of the things that I wanted to address, the only reason I really didn't is because it's a 5-second long topic, but who is the most forgotten about player on the team? It's Lucas Van Ness. I don't think it's particularly close. When you look at the gap between untapped potential and how much people are talking about. I mean, we talk ad nauseum about the wide receivers, about Jordan, about the tight ends. We talk about the offensive line and the safeties and, the corner situation. Heck, we talk about the defensive tackles and Rashawn Gary. Nobody talks about Lucas Van Ness. It's like, I just saw him and I'm like, bro, I forgot. I just forgot. So look, I think it's fair to, expect more, because, and again, I thought his stats were solid, especially his sack numbers, given the amount of snaps that he actually got. But when you are a relatively early, almost top 10 pick, I think we need to start expecting a little bit more. And so, when we look at wide receivers, the first gauge of whether or not somebody had a good season, Romeo Doubs, Wicks, whatever, was essentially top 32. And so if we're using sort of generic stats that anybody can look at, it's actually quite simple. It's 10 sacks, which is a good round number anyways, but there were 27 pass rushers that had 10 sacks. So that puts you in like the number one category. And then if you want to get into the top 10 range, you're looking at 15. So I'll just use that. And you could say, well, it depends on his snap counts. Not really, because if you're on a pitch count still in year 2 as a top 10 pick, even if it's not necessarily your fault, although it kind of has to be a little bit unless the Packers are completely incompetent, which maybe to some degree, we know that that's been a problem in the past, just not wanting to put guys out there when they should be. But I think that's a really easy and memorable way to look at it. If he gets to 10 sacks, again, sacks aren't everything, but just to make it easy, because nobody's really looking at we can pull up pressure numbers anyway, and you know how I feel about percentages, right? 10% is kind of that. I would say good is closer to 12%. Great is like 15 and above, something like that. So it's pretty close to sacks, actually, ironically. But the sack numbers are there. 10 is a good season. 15 and above is a really good season, and that puts you basically top 30 compared to top 10-ish. If you want that converted into pressures, around 50. Technically, if you had 50 last year, you were 39th, but around 50 pressures puts you in that sort of top 32-ish, whatever. Top 10 is around 80. In fact, it's exactly 80. Danielle Hunter was 10th with 80. And these are cumulative stats. Percentages are better, but at the same time, again, I'm torn because I'm annoyed with some fans when they refuse to look at percentages. Like, well, Lucas Van Ness didn't do anything. Well, he was never on the field. But at the same time, if you're a early first-round pick, and I understand Preston and Rashawn are also, not first. Rashawn was, Preston was not, but he's a starter. But you need to push for more. You need to be a guy that you can't keep off the field because you're just a wrecking ball. You need to be better than Preston and, shoot for being better than Rashawn. If you can't be, you need to be getting close to it. And so anyways, again, that would be my thought. 10 pressures is good. 15 or better is great. Sacks. Did I say pressures? Whatever.
Hey, Ryan. Steve up in Alaska.
Hey.
Just calling in to beat the dead horses about this whole lawsuit thing.
Okay.
I don't know if I've mentioned the story before. I feel I have it. Maybe I don't think I have. Maybe I don't know. It's in there. But in the food service industry, I'd seen a class action lawsuit be brought up against the company because some individuals were upset because the manager wouldn't let them take a cigarette break when they wanted to. By law, as employees, we're supposed to get 2 15-minute breaks and a half-hour break, or a full 1-hour break if you work an 8-hour shift. That's what these people were complaining about, that they deserved, and they had to be given their lawful breaks. So they put out a class action lawsuit. A bunch of people got involved in it. They won, and everybody got like a couple $100. It was stupid. Nobody got anything for it. And in the end, what happened was, company-wide, through the whole entire parent company, all the employees had to sign a piece of paper, because that's when that shows up, the piece of paper showing up from the company saying, here's the new rules. And basically, it took away all our freedoms as servers and kitchen staff and all that to just take a break when we can find time to take a break. Because it's food service. I don't get to eat breakfast at breakfast time. I don't get to eat lunch at lunchtime or dinner at dinner time, because that's when I'm busy, because that's when everybody else comes to the restaurant. So you just don't get those things. So these people basically screwed the pooch for everybody else because they were crying because they weren't getting their way. And that's a lot of what I see with this guy or this bar, and it makes no sense. This is an individual that's crying because they have to pay this high fee to get a service that brings them customers and makes them money. Because that's the deal here. This person's got, NFL Sunday ticket, so people come to their bar to watch football on Sunday. If you don't have it, they don't show up. Well, you're mad because it costs so much, but it's bringing you far more business than it costs.
Yep.
So I don't get it. One group of guys on a Sunday is going to spend enough money to cover the cost of their Sunday ticket. And then you have dozens and dozens of other people and a whole rest of the week or a whole rest of the month to make profit off of what that cost you.
Right.
So this is just somebody crying and trying to get their way because they see a big company And they figure they can sue them and make a lot of money off of it, but they don't realize what they're screwing themselves out of. So, yeah, it's a dumb situation, and I don't like any of this pandering about how people are suffering and being taken advantage of because it's stupid, it's foolish. But my time's up. I got to go. Talk to you later.
Well, and that is a good point. I mean, it's kind of like when you go out to a restaurant and you eat all the food and then you complain about it and want your money back. It's like, you ate the whole thing. It's like, yeah, but you cooked it wrong. I wanted it medium rare and you cooked my burger medium. So I don't want this. I want to give it back. You know, it's like, you have profited and now you want a refund after profiting for what, decades off of using the product? It's absolutely nonsense. Fine. You have to give back all the money that, or how about this? You get paid minus all the revenue you've ever made, and you have to be the one to pull the receipts for every Sunday that you've ever had a football game on in your bar. And if you come out negative, that's on you. Of course, they're not going to do that. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if this was initiated by the lawyers. I'm assuming almost all class action lawsuits are initiated by lawyers. They see a way to get a massive chunk of money, and then they just try to find some sucker to sign on to it. In this case, they found some random hole-in-the-wall bar to be like, yeah, sure, sounds good. But, yeah, that's I think that's most of these class actions, because you sue somebody for millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or in this case, billions of dollars. You take your 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is, you walk away with billions, and you're all set. So the whole thing is stupid. I think lawyers are they're necessary. They're important in many ways, but some of these guys are just absolute bloodsuckers that are costing all of us lots of money. They're just tying up all the courts, and they are just a complete drain on resources and a complete waste of everybody's time.
Hello, Ryan, the voiceless victim. Saying it like that kind of makes it sound like a villain or a superhero of some sort. The voiceless victim.
I didn't mean to make it sound great.
Or vampires. The voiceless victim. Okay. I don't know. Anyways, so I listened to your podcast earlier on the whole lawsuit of Sunday ticket and everything, and what it brought to mind is how college, for example, how there's been like this big talk in the last like several years about like loan forgiveness and whatever, and it's just like, am I a voiceless victim? Because I didn't have enough money to go to a better college, but also my parents made just over the like point of income that we got no scholarships, no like financial aid or anything. Mm-hmm. So I just had to take out loans for whatever I did. I wasn't able to go to a good school. So I made the decision to go to a community college. And in that time, I realized like I can learn way more without ever getting a degree, you know? And it's just, so you get all these people that go to college fully knowing that they're taking out all this money in loans, right? That's the consequences. We just live in a culture where there's no consequences. So bringing it back to the lawsuit, right? Whatever. If you like, the thing is that if you can't afford it, a lot of the times the local teams are available on TV, and if they're not, and if you want to, like, if you're like me who lives in Minnesota where you don't always get the Packers games, go find a bar. Go find the bar that's showing these games. Give them money. Give them patronage. Give them business. It's just like to claim this victim mentality about, I made the decision I knew what I was paying for this product, but I think it's too expensive after the fact. I knew what I was paying for it. I mean, to be honest,
like
I paid like one time for Sunday ticket. I regretted it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it again because it cost a lot.
Right.
Like, I'm not asking for money because I paid a lot of money.
Yeah, the problem is a lack of shame. Nobody has shame anymore. It's, I was in the same boat. I paid for it. It was a stupid decision. We had just moved to Madison. I just got a new job. It was a massive pay raise, but I still overestimated. I just thought, well, we're rich now. We can do whatever we want. I got a gym membership. we got DirecTV with the Sunday Pass. We just loaded up, man. All of a sudden we're poor. It's like, holy crap, dude. I thought this was going to make a big difference. That was a stupid decision. I was stupid. And I suffered through it and I paid for it. To turn around and say that DirecTV should be ashamed of themselves is a lack of shame on my part. I don't know, man. I don't know how people were raised. It's a very different kind of situation where nobody takes accountability for their own actions. It's kind of embarrassing to take actions and feel like nothing is your fault. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird thing that I can't fully relate to, and I just feel like we should bring shame back, and we should shame people for doing stupid things. I don't feel bad for people who are in a bad situation. I know the college thing is a touchy situation, but I'm sorry if you paid, like, if you took out $100,000 in loans for a degree that pays like $50,000 a year, you're stupid. I mean, come on, you went through what? How many years of school do we go through? Like 13 years of schooling, and you can't do basic mathematics. You can't do basic, like, common sense reasoning and problem solving. Well, they're just kids. You're not a kid, bro. You are a grown adult who's gone through 13 years of schooling. And if you're not smart enough to realize that's a bad decision, you don't belong in college because you're too dumb. I'm sorry. I don't know how you graduated high school. That's common sense. You can't afford it. You can't afford it. And parents that allow their kids to make stupid decisions, I don't know. I don't get it, man. The whole thing is broken. It's so far beyond that. It's funny. I just saw something on social media where it's like homeschooling taught me that you can teach somebody, like, kindergarten through 8th grade or elementary school math in, like, I forget however long it said, 1 hour a day for like a year. And it's entirely true. If you look at homeschooling, it's funny because I remember when I first started looking at it, it was like, oh, these homeschoolers, they do like 2 hours of school a day or something, or 3 hours or whatever. And I'm like, that's not enough. Like, you're going to fall behind like public school kids. No, you're not. You're not. It's not that freaking hard. You know how long it would take kids to learn all the knowledge you have? All the knowledge that you carry with you? How much math you know, reading, writing, arithmetic? I mean, my kids pretty much know it. They're little. There's nothing else that they need to know. They know what they need to know. Everything else is all that bull crap you cram into their head that they're going to forget in a year. I mean, it's just the whole concept of, I know we're on another topic now, but the whole concept of education is so broken. It doesn't make any sense. And I would love to try to fix it, but I don't think anybody wants to fix it because if we're being completely honest, schooling isn't about schooling. It's not about I want my kids to be super intelligent. It's about I need to go to work and I want somebody to babysit my kids. So we won't be fixing it, I guess. So there's that.
Sorry, voiceless victim. I got cut off there.
Yep.
So I just figured I'd round up my point. It's just that we live in a culture now that's just free of consequence in a lot of cases. And it's just like, we need to understand that everything we do has a positive reaction or a negative reaction.
And by the way, when we remove the consequences, it encourages the bad decisions. It doesn't make the bad decisions go away. It just encourages more bad decisions to be made. Like, there's a reason when you touch a hot stove, it hurts. Your body makes you feel the pain. Pain exists for a reason, so that you don't do it anymore. If you remove the pain response, you're in a lot of trouble. Your body, you are in serious danger. I mean, it's an actual disease that some people have, and it's incredibly dangerous because you need a pain response. You should feel pain when you do something wrong because it's what teaches you not to do wrong things. When you do stupid stuff and everybody covers and everybody makes excuses and everybody, paves over all your consequences so that you don't have to feel any pain, then you're just going to grow up and eat. You're never going to learning. You're going to be an irresponsible jagoff and self-entitled. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family, your friends, society. Make good decisions or suffer the consequences. That's the way it goes.
And when it's not always going to be the positive, the good side of things. Like, you spend the money on the ticket if you find that very important. Like, that's what you choose. That's what you prioritize over other things. Because you bought Sunday ticket, you can't buy other things. That's too bad. So, like, anyways, sorry, I'm kind of rambling on here. But I'm going to turn it around and say that within the next, week, there's going to be people showing up for training camp. Like, is it just me, or has this been, the shortest, dead part of the off season?
It does get shorter every year.
In a long time. There's been constant stuff going on. There's stuff, looking forward to. It's just been so exciting, and it's going to keep getting even more exciting with training camp coming up, and, anyways, yeah, there's just so much going on right now, even though it is the dead part of the offseason, which is crazy. There hasn't been enough movie talk in Packernet After Dark.
I agree.
Yeah. What's up with that?
You gonna add something to
more
that?
Of that. Have you seen any movies lately? I saw Inside Out on the 4th.
Did you?
Which was pretty decent. Yeah.
All right.
Anyways.
Okay.
Peace out. Stay cool in this hot weather that we're coming up on. Anyways, bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Inside Out. A lot of these animated movies are still quite good. I rag on movies not being very good, but Pixar does a good job, man. Not all of them, hit and miss, but Inside Out was a very good movie. I'm hopeful that Inside Out 2 is also solid. I doubt it'll live up to the first one, but I'm excited to see it. Contemplating taking my kids to see it at the theater, but I feel like these things come out so fast now that if we just kind of forget about it, all of a sudden it'll be on a thing, so we can just watch it then. Who was it recently in the Packernet Discord? We were talking about movies. Oh yeah, that was Beverly Hills Cop. I think I might have talked about that already. Beverly Hills Cop 4 came out. I initially hated it. I almost didn't make it, but I stuck it out and it came around in the end. One of the things I don't like about new movies is it's condescending about things are today or so much. And it's no, it's not. And I'm so sick of everything being modern. But it was a nice blend of modernized with old. So just if you watch it and you hate it, stick it out. And then John Pack fan in the Discord mentioned B. And so Omar hooked me up with a bunch of movies. I found The Beekeeper on there. I turned it. First of all, I thought it was a horror. I don't know why. I just assumed it was. So I was all excited. And it came out with this beekeeper look at that. I was oh, dang, this is going to be crazy. And then I saw that action guy in it. And I was beyond that, though, when I talk about modernizing, I don't want to use sensitive language, but they try to make things very palatable at the expense of being realistic. And I don't like it. It felt fake. It felt forced. The acting was not. It just, I turned it off about halfway through. I just couldn't. And whenever you watch a movie and it's that doesn't fit, everything that you would expect doesn't fit what you would expect it. The strong people are always really weak and the big people are small. And I can't watch this fairyland completely unrealistic nonsense. So, I mean, it's if you're into action movies with a good amount of gore and you got this guy that's it's what is that called? There's a million action movies where there's basically this secret group of mega elite, and one of them has something horrible happen and he goes on this insane rampage to go kill it's one of those movies. So if you're not bothered, I don't know a better way to describe it, and I'm not going to elaborate. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know. If you don't, if it doesn't bother you, you're going to love the movie. I couldn't handle it. I stopped it halfway. The heck, I feel like I've been watching stuff. Oh, I watched American Psycho. I've never wanted to watch American Psycho. It just didn't appeal to me, but there's so many like memes about that I felt like I needed. I guess I'll say I'm glad I checked it off the list. It was fine. It was fine. Just one of those movies that I feel like I need to have seen. It's like you feel a sense of shame that you haven't, and so I did it. But absolutely welcome some recommendations, by the way, especially horror ones, man, because like I've said before, like 95% of horror movies are just bad. But man, that 5% is so good, and there's so many hidden gems. Yeah, I don't know where they are. I don't know how to find them. But if you got some recommendations, let me know. But I'm gonna get out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. Good night. Have a good one. Bye bye. See you later. Bye bye.